I do want to thank Michael Flander, or I should say, give mention to Michael Flander and Jeremy Trombetta, who were the runners-up from the top 6. So I don't know if they're here today. And let's do this. Yeah, we don't have a third place this year because we had 2 students tie for second. So let's bring out our first second place story writer. Here we go. Mary Martha Wiggers, make some noise in the back. Love is not reality.
Love is not reality. It was another Thursday afternoon. Another Thursday afternoon of Anna, sitting in the familiar waiting room, waiting for the nurse to call her name. Nervous, chuckled Ethan, resting a hand on her knee to still its nervous jiggling. Anna only grimaced. Her eyes were glued to the clock on the wall, following the minute hand's sluggish progress. Anna, said Ethan softly, taking her hands in his. Anna looked at me. She tore her eyes from the clock and rotated to face him. His gaze was calm and steady. His voice was soothing. Anna, everything is going to be fine. You've prepared what you're going to say. There's no need to fret. But Ethan, what if they take you away again? She said, speaking to their interlocked fingers. What if this is the last time we talk? What if... Ethan hushed her, placing a finger to her lips. I'm here, Anna, and I'm not leaving. Everything is going to be fine. Ms. Perez called the nurse, causing Anna to flinch. Dr. Anderson is ready to see you. Everything is going to be fine, whispered Ethan, squeezing her hands. She nodded quietly. He leaned forward and gently touched his lips to her forehead. They stayed there for a long moment, and then Anna stood and followed the nurse into the doctor's office. Ms. Perez, I have been informed that you are no longer taking your medicine. Anna looked down at her knees, shifting guiltily in her seat. No, I suppose I haven't. Anna, why are you doing this? You were doing so well. You were leading a normal lifestyle. Your parents, your friends, everyone was so proud of the progress you were making. Why are you doing this now? Anna cleared her throat. Do you believe in God, Dr. Anderson? He raised his eyebrows, startled. Well, yes, but there are people who will tell you that your God isn't there. You would never stop believing in him, would you? Dr. Anderson didn't answer. The doctors told me I was schizophrenic. They told me that what I was seeing wasn't there, that what I was hearing and feeling wasn't real, but Dr. Anderson, it's real to me. It makes me feel like I have someone who's there for me, who cares how I feel. Anna extracted a canister of pills from her purse. I'm not going to take away your God. These pills took away my Ethan once. I don't want them to again. There was silence. Dr. Anderson knew what he should say. There were textbooks full of professional things that he should say, but the words went stale in his mouth. For this time, he could not help but think this patient might be right. So he said nothing. He merely nodded, and he watched as Anna Perez exited the office, and in the hand of a man that only she could see. And for the first time since he had started his sessions with her, she was smiling.
Also in second place, Hunter Rich, the Donut Man of the
Every day at exactly 3:30 p.m., Donut Man's Jam rides a shiny cherry red Schwinn fixed gear bike with a plains Endorphin forward. He casually meanders on the pothole dirt roads past the village Nyala, with his donut fryer attached to his rear, and continues on for approximately 20 miles before disappearing and setting up himself. His appearance, while outrageously peculiar, is only surpassed in strangeness by his constant call of, "Hot donuts, fresh hot donuts, only $1. While he travels on his daily route, the native population stares in wide-eyed amazement, with their weak bodies shaking in intense hunger. mouths watering to the thought of the doughy, fatty food entering their stomachs. The natives are usually either too perplexed or frightened by the sight of not only a white man in Sudan, but also a white man selling donuts to a country of starving people. Only on 2 occasions has a local mustered up enough courage to approach him. The first attempt was made by a 12-year-old boy who asked if he could merely be given a donut. The donut man replied, in perfect Arabic, that if the child had the equivalent of $1 American, he would be happy to sell it to him. The boy responded by saying that his family only makes $7.50 a year, and that he and his family were literally starving to death. The donut man responded by saying that by giving handouts to the boy, he'd only begin the vicious childhood cycle of charity that would prevent the boy from ever achieving schools. The boy then began crying and returned to his family, who were watching with intense curiosity and holding the hope that the donut man would take pity on them. As the boy ran into his mother's arms, the donut man tipped his cap and continued pedaling down the road. The second event occurred when a group of Janjaweed militiamen chased him in a Toyota pickup with a mounted Russian-made 50-caliber machine gun attached to the back. After the militiamen surrounded the cart and emptied the clips of their collision course into the donut man, they stood dumbstruck by the fact that not only had the donut man survived, but also he and his bicycle were untouched by the hundreds of bullets fired at them. The militiamen quickly scrambled into their pickup, and before they were able to get more than 100 yards away from the donut man, their truck exploded, killing every militiaman. The locals, along with the government officials, upon hearing the news, collectively decided that the white man on the bike was in fact Satan himself. While it's unclear whether or not this man is continually harassing the locals out of malice, or if he's a cunning businessman using the concept of supply and demand as an inspiration, what is clear is that the people he is not serving die every day.
All right. And strangely enough, this year we had 2 students tied for first place as well. So, coming in first place, Michelle Ridgway with She Was.
She was 5, a myriad of cigarette burns on her left arm, a permanent depression on the right end of the couch where her mother could reach her left arm most easily and still have the best view of the endless supply of bad television shows that went with her endless supply of cigarettes. She was 9, a stolen stuffed animal in the dollar store, a 99-cent price tag hanging out from underneath the thin mattress where she hid her best friend, a much-needed hug late at night after a severe beating. She was 11, a baby squirrel that fell from its nest, nursed back to health by her, a fire in the backyard where her new stepbrother roasted it alive, a box she found under her pillow that night containing the charred bones of her beloved pet. She was 13, a foodless lunch, a hollowness of her stomach she learned to ignore, a trip and spilled spaghetti sauce covering her shirt, a boy who was too flustered to even stammer an apology, a bright flush of embarrassment in public, a long, bitter cry in private. She was 15, a painful act of self-punishment, a single cut along her wrist that soon multiplied tenfold. She was 16, a boy who noticed, a single kiss of acceptance, a date to the prom, a new best friend. She was 23, a death, a wedding, a mother of the bride whose seat was empty, a bride whose day was better because of it. She was 25, a new addition to the family, a vow to give her a better life than she had. She was 5, a chip on the playground brought her mother running, a chip sob and a long hug, a return to play. She was 9, a question of the marks on her mother's arms that went unanswered, a first bicycle and a broken left arm for her birthday, a pink cast with the name scribbled on it, largest of all her mother's. She was 11, a lost kitten found on the way home from school, a new beloved family pet. She was 13, a lunch with her friends, a trip and spilled spaghetti sauce on the new boy's shirt, a new boyfriend. She was 15, a position as head cheerleader, the vote for most popular. She was 16, a driver's license and a car, an invitation to prom over the intercom for the senior. She was 23, a wedding, a mother of the bride too happy to speak, a bride too happy to laugh, too happy to cry. She was 25, she was 50, a death, a cheap, worn, ancient, stuffed bear with a 99-cent price tag hanging from it as a parting gift, a woman who is finally at peace, a new addition to the family. She was 5.
musical note going there. That's bizarre. Okay. Okay. Next slide. Okay. And coming in first, also first place, Ashley Dalton, puzzle.
Charles stared at the chaotic melange of colors: blue, orange, green, yellow, red, and white. In a flash of whirling color as brilliant as his intellect, he began to manipulate the colors around one another. Within 20 seconds, he had resolved the colors into an orderly cube with 6 monochromatic sides. "Charles," Principal Burns supplicated, "put that down and look at me." Charles kept his eyes down as he re-scrambled his Rubik's Cube for the 5th time in the past 10 minutes. "You're in a very serious situation here, you know," the principal continued, despite the boy's insolence. "Your only passing grade is in calculus. Now, why might that be?" Charles re-scrambled the Rubik's Cube yet again. He watched the collisions between the blue of the overalls he had outgrown, the orange of his father's prison suit, the green of the healing bruise on his own ribs, the yellow of his sister's hair, the red of the blood that ran down it, and the white of the linen over her coffin. Raising his gaze to meet the principal's for the first time, Charles held up the cube. Then, without breaking eye contact, he twisted the cube into its solved formation. "Have you ever solved a Rubik's Cube before?" Charles asked innocently, still intently staring at the principal. "Well, I suppose I did once as a boy, but what does that have to do with the subject at hand?" The principal responded, rather annoyed by this point. "It's beautiful when it's finished, isn't it? It's perfectly ordered, a rare thing in this world. Life outside and around this cube." Charles paused to re-scramble the Rubik's Cube. Has no definite set of solutions. Positively perplexed, Principal Burns snatched the Rubik's Cube from Charles's coarse hand and replied, "Again, I ask you, what does this have to do with—" Charles stood up. "Figure it out," he replied and left the room. Principal Burns watched him go. The click of the shutting door startled him, sending a barely perceptible tremor rippling through the folds of his skin. He didn't dare to move until the squeaking of the boy's sneakers on the linoleum floor finally faded into silence. The scrambled Rubik's Cube seemed to stare up at him from its place on top of the neatly stacked paperwork. He picked it up with a snort. Surely, he thought, this silly game was no match for a man with a doctorate. An hour later, though, he found he couldn't resolve the chaos of the colors in the cube, just as he couldn't resolve the memory of the blue of his dead wife's eyes, the orange of his son's sweater in the back seat, the green of the weeds that lined the highway, the yellow of the headlights barreling towards him, and the red on the shirt after the flash of a white light that marked him forever after as a killer of men. The boy was right. Some puzzles simply can't be solved.
Thank you very much again to all of the participants in the contest this year. And as I like to say, stories are due next February, so get started.